Oh, these kids. Okay, this is unrealistic. Woof. Hi friends, welcome. Happy 2022. Hope you're having a great start to your new year. Today, in honor of the new year, we're gonna talk about murder. Specifically, I'm gonna react to how to get away with murder. This is a highly requested reaction video from you, and I like to give the people what they want. I've never watched this show. It's been out for years, but I just never got into it. I don't know why. It seems right up my alley. It's about law and law school, and there's sassy female leads. What's not to love? If you're new here, my name's Leeja. I'm a real-life lawyer on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. That being said, I may be a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. Nothing that I say should ever be construed as legal advice, and you should always seek the advice of a licensed attorney before making any legal decisions. Let's dive right in. I am watching season 1, episode 1, the pilot. I figured let's start from the beginning. If you find this entertaining, please comment down below if you want me to do more of these. Like maybe I'll just keep watching and react along the way. Who knows? But let's just jump into the first episode for old time's sake. How about that?
I went back for this. You take that back right now.
No, it's smart. Commonwealth v. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗦. Case the prosecution should have won but lost because there was no murder weapon.
Nerd. I did some Googling. I didn't find any case called Commonwealth v. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗧 that had anything to do with the lack of a murder weapon. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it seems like a real deep cut. I certainly didn't learn it in law school, but it is an interesting concept, the idea that in a criminal trial, if you don't have a murder weapon, it is harder to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone did it. Okay, we talked about that in the Casey Anthony trial, where the prosecution just didn't have enough evidence to convict Casey Anthony. Similar situation. There was no murder weapon. There was no cause of death able to be determined because of the body was so decomposed. So she's not wrong. Not having a murder weapon definitely makes the prosecution's job harder.
I threw up 4 times this morning, worried she's gonna call.
She's a ball buster, sure. But I spent my summer interning for Chief Justice Roberts, so.
Dershowitz has the upper hand in the academic world, but Keating's clearly the better defense attorney.
Listen, Dershowitz I don't think has the upper hand in anything these days. So these are supposed to be 1Ls and that one guy who, by the way, I love that actor in Orange is the New Black. Whew! He worked for me, you know what I mean? But he just said that he did a summer internship with Chief Justice Roberts. First of all, you don't clerk for a judge in any capacity typically before going to law school. Usually clerking for a judge happens after you finished law school, or at the most a summer internship, or a part-time internship you do while you're in law school, but you certainly don't do a summer internship for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court the summer before you start law school. You would be useless to them. But the fact that he's saying that he clerked for Chief Justice Roberts tells me that this is supposed to be some Ivy League-esque school. So I believe this is supposed to be set in Pennsylvania, so I imagine this is supposed to be Penn. Penn is one of the Ivy League law schools. But I will say, pretty accurate first semester of law school banter, especially the ones who have worked for judges, because even if you can't clerk for a judge in a legal capacity, you can work for a judge as a legal assistant or some other assistant. In my experience, the ones who have worked for judges or in other legal assistant type capacities tend to be the absolute most insufferable once they get to law school, because they enter it thinking that they know everything about the law or that they have a leg up amongst their counterparts. But time and again, these people would raise their hands and prove that they really did not. So the one good thing about law school is you're really all starting from the same place of just not knowing what the hell you're doing. But there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of big talk, especially at the beginning before your ego has had a chance to get just beaten into submission by your 1L year. I will say, however, it is true that law school is a lot of pressure. And when I tell you that under pressure, I get a little sweaty, all right? You know what always keeps me feeling fresh? Native deodorants. Thank you so much to Native for partnering with me on today's video. That's right, I started using Native while I was in law school, and I still use them today. It genuinely keeps me feeling fresh even when I'm exercising, moving, and sweating under pressure. This stuff is not sticky, and it dries quickly. It's aluminum-free, paraben-free, vegan, cruelty-free, it checks every box, my friends. And it's made out of familiar products that you already know, like coconut oil and shea butter. I recently got my hands on 3 different scents: lavender and rose, sea salt and cedar, and citrus and herbal musk. And my gosh, they all smell great. Today I'm wearing the citrus and herbal musk. It smells like you're freshly showered, but still musky, like maybe you've spent a little time in the woods, you know? Oh God, I love it. And don't let gender hold you back here. It's musky, but really it's for any gender. Sea salt and cedar is similarly musky, but it smells more like musky at the seashore. seaside musk. And then lavender and rose almost, it has this kind of an antique smell to it, like a freshly showered lady in waiting. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just, they smell genuinely really fresh. And it stays put all day and provides 24-hour odor prevention, which really anyone can use, even if you're not a law student. So these scents have been amazing, but they have a really wide range of scents that are all like really simple and effective. And they have a new scent range, cupcake inspired. It's a collection with Baked by Melissa. They're created to make your everyday a little sweeter. So this is the version I got, but they also have a plastic-free version if you'd like to get a little more sustainable with your packaging. And Native has more to offer than just deodorants. That's right, they also have toothpaste and body wash. Okay, so normally 3 deodorants would be $39, but if you use the link down below in the description combined with my code Leeja, you'll get 3 deodorants for $25. That's 33% off. And using my code Leeja, you can get 20% off any toothpaste or body wash. So thank you so much to Native for partnering with me on today's video, helping me stay fresh even when I'm getting a little sweaty under pressure. Let's get back to the video.
Seats are assigned. There's a chart over there.
You don't want to be a sitting duck when the shooter gets here.
What? My God, I have no idea what you just walked into.
Oh, these kids. Okay, in my experience, seats were not assigned in law school. This is a really typical setting, I would say. When you start law school in a typical situation, your class is made up of, you know, any number, 150, 200 students, but then you're divided into smaller sections, typically of like 50 to 100 students. I think my section was 80 students. And you take the same exact classes for your entire 1L year with all of those 80 students. You're in the same classes with the same people for the full school year, which can be a blessing and a curse. It allows you to form study groups and close ties with people and find the people that you know you work well with, that you can go to time and again to help you study and work through concepts. But it also means that it becomes this weird, almost high school feeling vibe because there are cliques that form. It's small enough that everyone knows everyone's business. People date, people break up. It's a mess. The drama is real. If you can keep your head above the drama waters, good for you. I did not. But usually what happens is you're in this type of kind of lecture hall. You come in on your first day, you grab a seat, and then the professor hands around a blank seating chart and you put your name in wherever it is you're sitting, and then that becomes your seat for the semester. But there is some pressure riding on that because it's like, oh, this is where I'm stuck for the rest of the semester. But I will say they are really effectively capturing the nervous energy of the first day of law school. There's a lot of people talking big game. There's a lot of anxiety about where you're gonna sit and who you're gonna meet and how it's gonna be and how's the professor gonna be. Even though it's a little unrealistic, I think they're getting the general vibe right.
I'm Professor 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗥𝗡𝗦𝗖𝗥 and this is Criminal Law 100, or as I prefer to call it,
How to Get Away with Murder.
Unlike many of my colleagues, I will not be teaching you how to study the law or theorize about it, but rather how to practice it in a courtroom.
I will say I appreciate that. I had a couple professors who were practicing attorneys on top of being like adjunct professors, and I found their teaching to be really refreshing and lovely because they did really just apply it to here's what it looks like to practice law in the real world. Because a lot of law professors are academics, and so they get really heady about theories behind why the law is the way that it is, and that's important, and I really like talking about that sometimes, but it gets to the point where you get so muddied down with theory that you miss the actual concept that you're trying to learn, you know? And you also don't understand how this concept that you're learning applies in the real world. So it can be a double-edged sword. So I always appreciated the professors that did try to teach in a way that made the law make sense in the real world setting. My criminal law professor was pretty intense. She did come in kind of guns a-blazing because we had to cover a lot of ground in our one semester of criminal law, because you're not just studying murder when you take your first semester of criminal law, your 1L year. You do study murder, manslaughter, etc., but you also study a ton of other basic crimes. Conspiracy, attempt, robbery, burglary, which are 2 different things. You also study your Miranda rights, your constitutional rights when you get arrested, so your right to an attorney, your right to remain silent, when that attaches, when it doesn't attach. There's a whole host of stuff that you cover your first criminal law class. So how to get away with murder doesn't entirely encompass what you will actually learn in your first criminal law class, your first year of law school.
Tell us the facts. Connor Walsh.
The Commonwealth v. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧 was a case of attempted murder. The defendant, Ms. 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, worked as the second assistant to the victim. 𝗦𝗪𝗥𝗡𝗡𝗦, the CEO of an advertising agency.
So what was Miss Sadowski's mens rea? Think, Mr. Gibbons. It's nothing more than common sense.
I always hated when professors said this was just common sense. No, it is not. You're talking in Latin, lady. I know that mens rea is something that a lot of people know, and it just means intent, but like, it's a little insulting to be like, just use your common sense. Ma'am, I've never done this before. This is a Wendy's. This is a somewhat accurate depiction of how a law school class does unfold. This is what's called Socratic teaching, or the Socratic method. They will cold call you to answer questions about cases that were assigned to you. So you need to be on top of your shit, because they might call you in the middle of class and ask you a question like this, and it is really embarrassing if you don't know. No one, in my experience, stood up to answer the questions. That's a little much, but it is true that they just look at the seating chart and say you. The way that these students are answering isn't really accurate. I would say there's a lot more trepidation, a lot more uncertainty. It's a lot more guesswork when you are a first-year law student, because you have no idea what's going on. And a lot of these students are a lot more self-assured than I'd say your average first day 1L year law student's gonna be.
Never take a learning opportunity away from another student. No matter how smart you need everyone to think you are.
Okay, that's accurate. There's a lot of people trying to make everyone else think that they're really smart. Because it's really terrifying to feel like you seem dumb when you're in your law school class. So it's a really natural response, but some people are more insufferable about it than others. But I always really appreciated the professors that would call people out. I had some students in my class that would raise their hand and just say words because they wanted to show everyone that they knew the words, but they weren't actually answering any question or asking any substantive question. And some professors would really run with it, but others would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't think that's relevant. Oh God, that felt good every time that happened. You love to see it.
This isn't a past case, but one I took last week after Gina fired her previous lawyer. The trial begins in 2 days. So tomorrow, each of you have 1 minute to present the best defense for this case. See if you can beat my current plan. Use the resources in this office, Gina's discovery file, my library, the people who know me even better than myself, my associates.
This is like day 2 of law school. Also, there's no way in hell that a defense attorney would be allowing this group of like 80 students into her office to discuss an ongoing murder case and give them just unfettered access to discovery documents. I mean, she could have asked permission from her client to do this, but even then it feels like a real attorney-client privilege violation on like so many levels. And there's probably a lot of confidential stuff in there that like you don't want just any random person getting their hands on. Also, there's no way in hell that the theories that a bunch of people on their second day of law school are gonna come up with for a murder defense that this woman is gonna find helpful or useful in any way. She's got, what, 20 years of criminal defense experience? Like, nothing that these kids are gonna say is gonna help. You don't know what you're doing on your first day of law school. This is unrealistic. I will say I do appreciate that she's giving them this like hands-on real world experience. I wish that was a thing in law schools. It's not. You're just not gonna be doing this type of work your first semester of law school. It's all books, reading cases, answering questions, taking midterms, taking finals, memorizing legal theories. You're not out in the world doing much, except for drinking.
I normally wouldn't ask to turn it down, but today was my first day of law school and I have this big... What?
The last guy who lived in your apartment was a law student. I put up with his crazy loud rabbit sex and his nervous breakdown. You can deal with this.
But
Not entirely inaccurate. Did I have a nervous breakdown during law school? No. Did I have increasingly numerous panic attacks? Maybe. It's a lot of pressure your first year. I don't know what kind of material that wall is made out of though, that it would allow for that type of scratch mark to be made. Is it made of clay? Is that a clay wall? Do you have clay walls in Philadelphia?
Where's Gina? Gina's one of them, while Mr. Kaufman represents the wealthy and out of touch.
Attempted murder, therefore, is a bogus, inaccurate charge.
We don't know where Gina was.
I think not. I think not, indeed.
That's pretty accurate when you're doing your first like practice oral arguments your first year of law school. I bombed mine, you guys, I'm not gonna lie. Talk about sweating under pressure, am I right? Oh boy, I did bad. But listen, we bounced back. There are Supreme Court justices that have gotten C's and B's during their law school experience. It's fine.
None of you beat my approach, which goes as follows. Step 1, discredit the witnesses. Step 2, introduce a new suspect. That person is Mr. Kaufman's jealous business partner, Lionel Bryant. Step 3, we bury the evidence. We throw so much information at the jury that they walk into the deliberation room with one overwhelming feeling: doubt. That's how you get away with murder.
I mean, that's not like a groundbreaking defense strategy. It's not a bad defense strategy. And of course, I'm not an expert at this, but you've seen that quite a bit. Your main goal is always going to be to discredit whatever witnesses the prosecution brings forward. You want to make sure that their credibility is thrown out as much as possible, or question their motives, or anything like that that's going to put some doubt in the minds of jurors. Introducing an alternative theory to the case, also pretty common. And then it is also a strategy that is employed by defense attorneys to then throw enough evidence at the jurors that something in them has some doubt. See, for example, the Casey Anthony case that I covered a couple weeks ago. So it's not a bad theory. I just don't think it's necessarily like groundbreaking, you know what I mean? But again, none of these 1Ls would have thought of that because you don't know anything your first day of law school.
See you in the courthouse at 9.
Oh, Professor Keating, we have torts at 9 tomorrow, then property at 11, so I'm not sure
The way you're
how
whining right now makes me believe you think I'm your mother, Miss Pratt. Show up tomorrow or drop out of the competition. It's that simple.
It is cool though that they're going into court and observing court. I think that's a really powerful thing that as a law student you can do. My civil procedure professor had us observe some court and it was really helpful. And a lot of my favorite moments from my internships as a law student were when I was just observing in court. I spent a lot of time in court just watching people practice law, and it's really cool to do. And what's fun is you can do it wherever you are, even if you're not a law student. Most things are open to the public. You just have to search courts in your state or federal courts in your state, and usually the website has a schedule and you can just show up at the courthouse. And it's really cool to watch it unfold. So if you have a free day some week and you want to just show up at the courthouse, check the online schedule first and find something that's going on that might seem interesting. And it's important that we have open courts in this country. That's the whole reason behind that, is because we want the public to have access to the judicial process and to be able to hold judges and the judicial process accountable. It's really hard though because we don't really have great legal education for non-law students in this country, so people don't even know that they can just show up at the courthouse and watch things unfold. But people don't know that because our legal literacy in this country is lacking, which is the whole reason why I made this YouTube channel to begin with. So let me get off my soapbox, but go check out your local courthouse, see what's going on, and learn something.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
What the hell are you doing?
Are you colorblind?
Yes, but I know what I saw that morning.
I see. So whether the pill that you saw on my client's desk was blue, like her anxiety medication she used to endure working under you, or yellow, like the aspirin used to poison Mr. Kaufman, is not something you could tell us.
Okay, well that was great for her because she was able to question the credibility of this witness, therefore undermining the entire story that the prosecution's putting forward. However, first of all, if someone enters a courtroom during a trial like this, things don't stop. You are ignored. It's kind of rude to do so, but like you can do it. The person who's in the process of questioning a witness isn't gonna stop and turn around and be like, what's going on? Also, a reminder, these people are like 1 week into their first semester of law school. There is no way in hell she would know anything or be able to just traipse into the middle of a trial in the middle of questioning a witness and like change the whole trajectory of cross-exam. You know what I mean? That does make me think of the scene in My Cousin Vinny, which I reacted to. I'll link it in a card up above, where he tests the older woman's sight by standing way back in the courtroom and putting up fingers and asking how many he had up. It's a great way to discredit a witness who has some sort of eyewitness testimony to give, to undermine their ability to actually sense their surroundings.
Hello? Professor? Oh my God.
The hell out.
Has this guy never heard of sending an email? Let her have a life, all right? Professors have lives too.
I came across this case.
𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗥𝗩𝗜𝗖, which says we can move for a faster verdict if we think the prosecution's evidence is insufficient.
What you're suggesting is called a directed verdict. If we ask for it and get denied, all the public will hear is there's enough evidence to convict.
But you discredited the first assistant today, and
You had an idea, I'm telling you it's a bad one. Good night, Seth.
She's not wrong. Of course she knows what a directed verdict is. That's a real thing, and it's a real basic thing you learn in your first semester of civil procedure. Again, he could have sent an email. A directed verdict is something that a party can move for, asking the judge to just make a determination without sending the case to a jury. Basically, the judge would have to determine that there is simply no evidence that a jury could possibly decide in one party's favor. This is a really difficult thing to reach because usually a judge is going to want to send it to a fact finder, the jury, to make a determination. It's very rare that a judge is gonna be able to flat out say, like, there is simply no evidence that could possibly support the prosecution's case here. So she's right, it's a bad idea.
Will you please read this email that you wrote to Mr. Kaufman?
Dear Arthur, consider this my official request that you step down as CEO. I've warned you about having sexual relations with employees of
Your
this
Honor,
company.
this email was not part of the discovery file.
Is this true?
I thought it was.
Did you write this email, Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Then I have to side with the defense here. The email's admissible.
Your Honor.
I've made my decision, Mr. Williams.
Okay, at the very least, she would have to give the prosecution a copy of this email. She can't just be like, I'm not gonna tell the prosecution. Like, you can't just just drop a bunch of evidence without giving the prosecution a copy of it. However, usually in order to enter an email into evidence, you do have to have the person who wrote the email present to authenticate it, and she did have that here, so that's good. But that was a valid objection that the prosecutor made.
First year is the worst, no doubt. Just put your head down, do the work, and try not to take it so seriously.
Okay, no offense, man, but obviously you never went to law school. This place is a dogfight, 24/7.
It's true, first year is the worst, and in some cases it can be a dogfight. Depends on which school you go to. My school was really collegial. I went to Northeastern in Boston, and everyone was pretty in it to help everyone out and make friends and be collegial. But I have heard horror stories of other law schools. I could see an Ivy League school being like this. Stories of you walk away from your laptop in the library to go to the bathroom, you come back and someone smashed it just to sabotage you, or shared books for classes that are in the library. Someone will check it out and rip out important pages so that other people can't get to them. So I think in some cases it can be pretty bad. My experience, luckily, was the opposite. Because the thing is, you go to law school with other law students who are going to be lawyers, and the legal profession is big. There's a lot of lawyers, but it's small enough that having a bad reputation is gonna bite you in the butt at some point.
Because then you'd actually be admitting out loud to defending a guilty client. And who really has the time to deal with the moral repercussions of that?
As a defense attorney, you sometimes do defend a guilty client. Everyone who's been charged of a crime, whether or not they are guilty of it, deserves competent representation. And in some cases, if the client is guilty or they've pled guilty, you still have to be there to defend them because their constitutional rights still come into play. You can push back on their sentencing, on the evidence used against them, etc., etc. There is a lot of work for a defense attorney to do, even in the case where there is a guilty client. And if your client has pled not guilty, it is your job to defend that pleading. People do it all the time.
My husband and I have been talking about having a baby for a long time now. And I hate making excuses, but it's put a lot of pressure on us and our marriage. Thank you for keeping this between us.
I can't tell if I can trust her. This seems like a manipulation move. Also, isn't she like in her 40s? Hasn't that ship sailed? You know what I mean?
Footage that I will now play for everyone. There. The night before the murder attempt.
You had one job, to let us know what bodies we needed to bury. Text calls, anything we needed to destroy, and you didn't. So guess what? Guess what? You go to jail. And I'm the shoddy lawyer who put you there.
I had a headache.
Stop lying.
They would have had that evidence before trial. Like, it's not something that's just gonna be sprung on them. The prosecution had to have given them that as part of their discovery files before presenting it to a jury. Also, a reminder, that's her client. You can't speak like that to a client. Like, she's paying her a lot of money for this defense.
Think carefully. Everything after this moment will not only determine your career, but life. You can spend it in a corporate office drafting contracts and hitting on chubby paralegals before finally putting a gun in your mouth. Or you can join my firm and become someone you actually like.
Woof. I don't know if deciding between doing corporate law or doing criminal defense is really what's gonna determine whether or not you become someone you like. I think you could be self-loathing equally in either situation. Also, people love to harp on that, like, the decisions that you make, the grades that you make your first year of law school determine the rest of your life. It's a crock of shit. Of course, grades matter, but like, you'll still get a job, you'll be fine, it's not that deep. You know what I mean?
It's the only way to destroy the DNA.
Whoa, what a zinger of an ending, huh? I will say that's not the only way to destroy DNA evidence. It's been difficult to get DNA evidence off decomposed remains out in the wilderness, remains that have been dumped in a lake or river, which they were right by, remains that were put in a plastic bag and allowed to decompose. You know, like, burning it's not the only way. Okay, but what a way to do it. Dang, well that was fun. If a little inaccurate, a little dramatized, but like that's the whole point, right? We're here for some entertainment, not to get the actual reality of what it's like to be a law student, because frankly, it's way more boring than that. But I think they did a good job of capturing the general nervous energy of your 1L year. Well, that was fun. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider hitting that thumbs up button down below, hitting the subscribe button if you want to hear more from me. If there are other TV shows, movies, or episodes of this show that you'd like me to react to, comment those down below as well. Once again, thank you to Native for partnering with me on today's video. Reminder to check out the link in the description down below and use my code Leeja to get 3 deodorants for $25. You can also use that code Leeja to get 20% off any toothpaste or body wash. Keep it fresh, my friends. I owe a few belated thank yous to a few Patreon supporters. That's right, I have a Patreon if you didn't know. If you want to support me and get some behind the scenes footage, early access to videos, and other little goodies, please consider joining the community over on Patreon. We also have a fun Discord chat. We have a good time over there. So thank you so much to Old Man Pence, Ashley Morris, Stacy Klein Endorsed, and Aramis, my newest Patreons. And thank you as always to Brett Peon Tech, my VIP extra special Patreon supporter, for your ongoing support. It means the world to me. Also, a reminder that I am offering content creator sessions. That's right, if you're interested in becoming a content creator, consider signing up for a session with me today. We'll have a one-on-one discussion to talk about your dreams and hopes and how to get you there, all right? More information is at the link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.